Ladies and gentlemen, we are back at the semi-finals of national debates. In this season, the best of the best continue to battle it out for who will be the greatest debater of this season. I am your host, Esperanza Kapanga.
And I am Chris Boru. The bone of contention between our intellectual teams today is parents should be held responsible for their school-going children's discipline problems.
In the proposition are the ladies from Ngina High School.
In the opposition, we have the gentlemen from Strathmore School. Proposal number 1, you have 3 minutes to make your submissions.
What parents say to children become their inner voice. My name is Daisy Acheng from Ngina Girls, Mombasa County. Who is a parent? A parent, according to the UNRS, is a person who is the anchor of a community, is a caregiver, and who takes care of the children. Being held responsible is to consider somebody accountable. School going in this case is attending school. And who's a child? A child is a person under the age of 18 years. Discipline problems, this is when students act out in a variety of ways impacting those around them and their ability to learn. In this case, we have discipline issues such as disrespect, defiance, arrogance, bullying, and aggression. This motion, parents should be held responsible for their school-going children's discipline problems, simply means that parents, in a certain way, are accountable for their school-going children and not only responsible. You should see that. Not that only parents, you have some other issues such as the children themselves can be blamed. You have the internet can also be blamed. But parents in a certain aspect must be blamed. So if a parent is to be held accountable, what do you think will happen? Let me tell you. If a parent knows that he or she will be held accountable for what his or her child is doing in school, like bullying, that parent will act in a way that is positive back at home. I'll talk about sensitivity and critical thinking. What you do back at home will reflect on how your child will behave. Our parents, our mothers specifically, are the first people we see the moment you start speaking and seeing. Those who breastfeed you, they may not be your mothers, they may not be your fathers, they may even be your teachers in terms of your ability to think and learn. I'll talk about these parents. The first person you see, I said, is your parent, is your mom. And when you see your mom insulting your dad, you do not expect me to come from the womb where there is no knowledge and learning, to come to this world and not insult people like my mom does. Do you understand? So parents should be held responsible for the moral upbringing of their children. Children learn a great deal about their social behaviors from their parents. I'll talk about the teachers and the parents. When you go to school and your teachers tell you insulting people is a crime, you tend to live with that, insulting people is a crime. When you go back home, although your mom does not tell you insulting people is a crime, you learned it from school, right? So that means that parents, who in this case are teachers and also your parents, have made you learn on a broader aspect the impact of discipline in you. So they should be held responsible, because if they're not, then no one will teach us discipline. A child is a child and doesn't know what every adult knows. So certain leeways need to be given. And a child is a child is a child and doesn't know what adults know. So when it reaches an age such as 18 years and the child is able to know what he or she should do, then you cannot hold the parents responsible. But until then, hold them responsible.
First proposer, you have 3 minutes to make your submissions.
What a wonderful quote. What parents say to children become their inner voice. I'd like to ask you then, so what do bad parents leave with their children? Getting married is a choice, but I believe parenting is a calling, because many parents go out of their way to give for their children. However, many parents today are selfish, which is against SDG number 4 on reduced inequality. According to standardmedia.co.ke, approximately 9 million Kenyan men watch pornography on a weekly basis. According to Nairobi Wire, in Kenya, nearly as many women as men indulge in pornography. 74.4% of people surveyed stated they considered marriage a joke. I mean, what? And the divorce rate in Kenya has almost doubled in the past 3 years. A whopping 3 out of every 5 children are born in families where their parents never got married or the man ran away. So what does this mean for Kenya? The situation is dire. However, divorce rates in Kenya are half that in the rest of sub-Saharan Africa, according to www.nation.co.ke, and the pornography statistics are meager 1.83% globally. Now, we all know the negative effects pornography has on the brain and human interaction, especially between parents and their children. So what does this say about how parents globally will raise their children today? Now, I'm not just blaming parents, because today's children are way more entitled than they used to be. According to the World Bank, children surveyed in the UK, Canada, and Brazil felt like their parents were obliged to take them to the university of their choice, if within their means, despite the cost. Now, while that's not a bad thing, most parents of today, raised through hardship, fail to understand why their children behave the way they do. Their discipline will therefore be flawed, as a failure to understand is guaranteed to cause a rift between the parents and their children. So, what do we propose? A return to communal parenting that has not been wiped out completely in Kenya and most of Africa, where the whole community is responsible for taking part in the upbringing of the child. The more people that are involved in the upbringing of children, the better life dynamic and diversity of world views the child is brought up with. A study in Chile done in 2017, according to the UCLA Brain Mapping Center, found that children raised by an extended family were more responsible and mentally stable compared to their dual-parent counterparts. So therefore, I'd like to go back to the quote that we were given at the beginning. What parents say to their children becomes their inner voice. This is true. And therefore, parents shouldn't be the only ones raising their children, because parents of today, sadly, have their flaws based on the society of today. We cannot give parents the responsibility of the future generation. We are all responsible. Thank you.
Second proposer, you have 3 minutes for cross-examination.
Well. You couldn't have said it better. According to our team, we define parents as a caregiver. Judge Maina, you are a parent. Judge Nancy, you are a parent. Madam Siplin, you are a parent. In our team, we stand and say that parents are not the people who give birth to you. Parents are the caregivers. Everyone in the community are parents. So, Chris, you can also be a parent. I hope you got that right. Parents are everyone in the community. So, I'd like to give you this example. It's something in our society right now. I give you an example of a parent who comes home drunk. Get that picture in your mind, a parent who's drunk. And you know when you're drunk, you don't have control of your mind. You just speak things that you don't know. Sometimes we tend to do this thing in front of our children. Yeah? And then the child will grow up in the sense that, so mom and dad, they drink, they take alcohol, so it's good. Let me also take a sip. You'll find children, when you ask them, why are you taking alcohol or doing drugs, and they'll tell you, mama na dadi pia wanakunywa, so hakuna shida. So you see, parents should be held responsible for their school-going children discipline problems. I'd like to tell you that in a study presented by the Journal of Police and Criminal Psychology, it states that 1/3 of the serial killers in the world, if you look at their history, till the root, you'll get to see that they had poor parenting. And you know the effects of serial killers, they just kill. It's like they kill for pleasure. But if you go down, if you narrow down your points, you'll see that the parents are to be blamed for serial killers. So we're saying that poor parenting is something in the world right now. And the parents, you need to pull up your socks. You need to pull up your socks, because you're really failing us. Parents should be held responsible, yeah. And as the Swahili people say, maji hufuata mkondo. So us as children, we have this habit of mimicking people. I'll mimic what you do, because I see like, he's older than me. So we tend to mimic, yeah? So as parents, it's our responsibility. Parents have said teachers, our guidance, the people who gave birth to us, it's their responsibility to act and give us everything we deserve as children. And yeah, maybe and probably will change our ways.
Second opposer, you have 3 minutes for cross-examination.
Hello, everyone. It's clear from the statements made there is a lot of chaos in this world because I'd like to ask, if someone is taking alcohol at home, does this person not have a house help? Where are their siblings? Where is everyone else? Where are the neighbors? I would like to ask which kind of house this is you're living in where you're completely alone. You know, I'm really sickened by the statements being made here because this SDG, this motion, is very closely linked to SDG number 4, which is on quality education. When people have disciplinary issues, it's going to affect their education. And where do these issues come from? Is it really just the parents? Let's use a personal example. I'm in the choir, and next week we have music festivals. Some schools are going to be sleeping away from home for a long time. Now let's say there's a girl who decides that she's going to have some fun and she ends up pregnant. Do you expect the principal to pick up his phone and say, "Hello, Mama Sarah, your daughter is pregnant and I blame you"? Is it really just her fault? Can we really just, I think it's quite clear how ridiculous this is. Who are Sarah's friends? Is Sarah a person with no friends? Does she have no siblings? Where is the community? Is Sarah living on her own island? Because I think it's ridiculous to think for a second just because you have bad parents, you're allowed to act badly. Let's say I had bad parents. Does that give me an excuse to come and burn this building down? I have friends who will advise me properly. I have teammates, rather, not teammates, but opponents who will see what I am doing and who will stop me. I don't really understand why people are blaming it completely on parents. Now, let's look at some of the reasons why children act out. Some children have homes which are horrific, homes where they are abused. And I think that the nuclear family unit really enhances this abuse because we don't really have a chance to seek an outside perspective. Let's look at the communal family structure that African society had. Let's say something bad is happening to me. My dad might not be around, but I have a sibling, don't I? I have a cousin. I have an entire group of people who I was circumcised with. Am I really going to lack? I mean, people, I need you to realize that there are so many other problems. It's not just parents. Are you really going to tell the single mother of 8, you have to take care of every single thing your child takes care of? No, that woman is struggling to feed 8 mouths. Do you really think she's gonna talk to each one of them and ask them, what did you do wrong today? Okay, please tell me, what did you do wrong? So I can advise you, because I think it's just nonsense. You shouldn't really blame only parents. We have an entire society. This entire room can spot someone drinking alcohol in the corner and go up to them and say, perhaps you should stop. Perhaps you'll develop a problem. Now, I'd like to show that standardmedia.co.ke ran a survey and found that 64.4% of men deemed themselves unprepared for fatherhood. And among the 15 to 19-year-old demographic, at least 1 in 5 girls have an unplanned pregnancy. Now, what does this tell us? Let's be honest, most parents don't know what they're doing. They are young and they are inexperienced, and sometimes we can't judge their circumstances, and therefore it's up to the community to step up and really tell us that perhaps you should be doing this with your child. If I happen to do something reckless, I don't want a single person to call my parents and say that it is just your fault. Perhaps I was influenced by my peers. We really need to go back to this method where we have many influences on a child, because a child is like a clay pot. And from a person who has struggled with pottery, I can tell you that every single imprint really matters to that child. Thank you.
The proposers have been asked, if parents are actually to blame, then where does that leave the street children and orphans who are criminals but do not have parents to take care of them or guide them in life? The opposers, on the other hand, have been asked, if it is a responsibility of the whole community to bring up children in our society, what do they have to say about the negative influences that are there in these same communities? Now, proposer, you have 3 minutes to respond.
Now, basing on our explanation of a parent is a caregiver or a teacher. It can be biologically, this parent can be entitled to the child, their teachers, their relatives, all these are parents. Now, to answer your question, Faith from Kahuhia Girls, these street children, these criminals, we are blaming the parents, yes, because the community should play their part. Should play their part as parents. So the community, when we blame parents, the community will take up their roles. The relatives in the communities, the teachers, the neighbors. If everyone understands that we are all parents and we have a responsibility to play, then we wouldn't have street children. We wouldn't have criminals. Now, let's look at parenting. There are 2 ways, the legal aspect and the moral aspect in responsibility. Now, in the legal aspect, we see that in countries like UK, USA, Florida, in Michigan, different states, there are laws that bind the parents to responsibility. These are the truancy laws. But in some aspects, they have not worked. Now, if we emphasize on these parents to play their responsibility, they wouldn't have the legal aspect. We do not need laws to bind them. Now we'll move to the moral aspect of it. Traditional African society, where everyone was a parent to a child. You see a parent doing you see a child doing a mistake, and anyone was allowed to rectify the child, from a sister to a brother. We're not defining a parent from Wikipedia or the dictionary meaning. We are putting parentship according to the UN, a caregiver and a teacher. I am a parent to my sister, and I'm proud of that. If I'm held accountable, then the next day I see my sister watching pornography, as they say, then I will be entitled to make sure that I set it straight for my sister that pornography is not the way. We are the future parents. Now, if we hold each one and every one of us accountable through standing firm with me on this motion, then we are sure that parental skills will be instilled in the next generation. We'll be sure that those bad parents that we have wouldn't be there. You can't tell me that just because we have a drunkard father, that means the society at large has failed. No. There are good people in the society. Are we saying the implementation is easy? No. We might not achieve 100%, but the 90% is enough. My name is Phoebe Kadzo from Mama Ngina Girls, strongly proposing the motion at stake. Thank you.
Tadaposa, you have 3 minutes to respond.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is honestly so frustrating to hear the proposer saying that everyone in society is a parent. God forbid that I go home today to my parents and tell them, Mom and Dad, I am a parent now. I can't imagine what sort of hell will be raised at home when I issue such a statement. I also need to redefine what they've said a child to be. A child isn't just someone between the age of 0 and 18. I don't cease to be my parents' child the day I turn 18. A child is merely the offspring of a human being. So when I am 25, when I'm 30, when I'm 40, I'll still be my parents' child. Now, I was asked about negative personalities in society and how that relates to communal parenting. Well, not everyone in society is bad. In fact, it's a few bad apples in the entire sack that is society. We can't let a few bad people deter us from communal parenting just because they may have a bad influence. There's a phrase that I've always heard that says, kill them with goodness. Well, if we drown them out with the good influences, they won't have time for the bad. Now, you may ask, what else can we blame for disciplinary problems among school-going children? Well, researchers at the University of Minnesota at Minneapolis, they conducted a survey among 3,000 teachers in the state of Minnesota in the US. What they found was that 70% of teachers blame mental health disorders for the disciplinary problems. Now, we live in a country where, according to the University of Nairobi, 34% of people have a mental illness. That means that on this stage, at least 2 people, according to these statistics, suffer from one mental disorder or another. We also live, and that's not meant as an insult, it's a very serious case. People struggle with things like depression on a daily basis, and we live in a society where the mention of mental illness draws laughter from a crowd. How are such people supposed to say that they have a problem and get help for it? No, they can't. So instead, they'll go to school and act out, and no one will know why. And would it be fair to blame the parents for mental illness that the society has stigmatized so much that they don't feel at ease with talking about it? That would be immoral, and it would be horribly wrong. You also can't blame parents for negative peer pressure. It has been sung to me by my parents that I should keep good company. If I decide to defy them and join a band of rascals in school, will you blame my parents for not guiding me in the right way? You really can't. A study at Daystar University was done and found that 65% of students blamed their friends for introducing them to alcohol. Are the parents to blame for that? Shall we blame the parents for everything? No. That's making them a scapegoat for a societal issue that isn't as simple as the proposers want us to believe. My name is Victory Wayaki. Thank you.
Proposition, you have 1 minute to give your final submission.
Okay, so all of us here are under a school. Either you're from Kahuhia, you're from Ngina Girls, you're even from Strathmore School. All of us here are under our various parents who are our teachers. So when we decide to boycott anything here, who will be held responsible? Our parents. Who are who? Our teachers. So parents should be held responsible for their school-going children. And I repeat, school-going children, discipline problems. You know, I am the kind of parent my mother was to me. I will be the kind of parent my mother was to me. And you should understand that parenthood is almost changing its roles nowadays because people don't want to accept the blame. They don't want to blame themselves as parents for the discipline problems that are taking course in this nation at this moment. They tend to blame it on other factors. And one thing that most people don't understand is this. The moment you start blaming someone else for your failures, you start failing. So we have failed as parents because we have decided to blame other factors apart from parents, which is one of the factors that are to be held responsible for our, and I mean my, discipline problems. Thank you.
Proposers, you have 1 minute for your final submission.
There's still a lot of confusion present, but don't worry, I'm here. I think that we should all look at the etymology of the word parent because it comes from the Latin word parere, and parere means to bring forth. And while the motion does mention parents, it doesn't really mention parenting because parenting can be done by basically anyone. If my mother were to pass away and so were my father, and I had, let's say, a sibling who was like 3 years old, then I would definitely be their parent. However, we can't simply call everyone a parent because that's just abusing language. And the moment we start making things up, we start believing in delusions such as parents being the only ones responsible for our disciplinary faults. Now, let's say I did something bad, the same example they've given. Are you really telling me that I won't be held responsible? No one here will be held responsible? That seems a bit unfair because I think that everyone has a role to play in the morality of society. Everyone has a very special part to play. SDG 11, sustainable cities and communities. How are we ever going to achieve this if we're simply going to absolve ourselves of guilt, if we're going to let people keep bad friends, if we're going to let everyone act however they want to, no matter how badly, just because they don't have the term parent? My name is Mark Itaka, and I pray for a better society.
I think I'll give credit where it is due. Strathmore, the three gentlemen, you're smart guys. Interestingly, when you take the stage to speak, I have to stop what I'm doing and listen to you. And that is the mark of a great debater. Very smart. The way you are analyzing issues is very intelligent. You are the embodiment of the great debater, the great debaters rather. And you remind me of season 2 great debaters, Strathmore School still. I mean, they left an impact in my mind. And today, I think I've just seen season 2 reborn in season 9, so to speak. And we have excellent debaters. Mama Ngina School, I think you are good. The problem is the broad definition of the word parents. I think you took a very dangerous direction, or a direction that did not favor you that much. If you look at everyone in terms of a parent, then the question is, what direction are you giving to the motion? How are you intending to approach the topic? And how do you intend to reason to the end? And are we sure we want to hold parents to account? I don't know.
Daisy, you began pretty well, and I think the challenge for the other team members is when your opponents came onto stage and challenged some of the submissions that you have made, and so you wanted to defend your position, but in the process got lost. And you know, when you then gave a very broad definition of parents, which was not where you began, then you kind of lost us. But I think overall you have put up a good fight. For Strathmore, I think one of the things that I admire about your team is the teamwork and the way that there's such a logical progression from the first debater to the last debater. One of the things that I liked is that I think for Joseph, you spend quite a lot of time just setting the stage for your team members and make it very easy for them now to come on and build on the arguments that you've made.
For this debate, Ngina girls, the judges saw it fit to award you 71%. Let's give them a round of applause. Strathmore School, the judges awarded you 80%, making you the winners of this debate. Congratulations to both semi-finalists, and to Strathmore, congratulations for being the greater debaters in this particular debate.
Dear audience, thank you so much for staying tuned to watch the show that gives you the best of high school debates. It does not end here because the conversation still continues across our social media platforms with the hashtag GDC for SDGs. Until the next episode, I've been your host, Chris Boru.
And I am Esperancia Kapanga. See you at the finals.